Okay.
Okay, welcome to Imaginarium Film Festival. Well, we are talking with our guest, Andrei Dănescu from Proti Place. We are talking about board gaming for socialization, but also for education. Andrei, what can you say about this? You are a specialist. You have the biggest YouTube channel about board gaming in Romania. So you have something to say about it.
Yeah, so specifying Romania is very important because there are big YouTube channels and social media channels regarding board games. So just shortly, I have a small presentation. Just I want to discuss about some general things about board gaming. Most of the stuff maybe most of you know already, but I just want to give a big picture and why, in my opinion, it's nice to use it for socializing and education. And afterwards, if there are any questions, we can discuss about that shortly, something about Proti Play, so that you understand why Simona is saying that I'm a specialist. Or I'm doing content about board games since around about 2 years. The point is that the focus on this content is for the Romanian community. This means usually all my content is in Romanian and is based or focused on games that are either created in Romania or localized in Romania. The community in Romania is not that big, let's say, the board gaming community, and that's why I wanted to first of all focus to show them and help the community grow by showing them the games that are in Romania or localized, translated, or created in Romania. What else I do so that I can get as many people as possible in this beautiful hobby? I make in my city, let's say in Timișoara in Romania, different events with after schools, with other locations. I even team buildings at companies. This was before the pandemic. Now it's not so much about events, but I try to do as much as possible online to grow this community until we can go back to events. And there are a lot of other things that I do. I do presentations and so on YouTube, and keep all the on Facebook, give all the news regarding this community or regarding board gaming in Romania. What else I started now is like so if you're interested in English content and are curious what I'm doing, because most of my content is in Romanian, I'm trying to give my Instagram page, everything is under the name Proti Place, some identity and having some English content there. So this is everything shortly about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. If you have more questions, you can ask afterwards, because it's not a presentation about me. Now we're talking about board gaming, which is clear, but going, why is it important or usable in socializing and education? Maybe it's obvious in a way, and most of you know how you can use them like this. I just wanted to underline it. That's why I put this title, but giving you some general information about board gaming. Board gaming are like, they started with the name board gaming because it was a board implied. So games like Monopoly, Risk, and things that you know in that direction have a board. That's why it's a board game. But now under the name board games, you can count everything. You can count card games, like everything what is in that direction and genre. Because board gaming is it moved from having a board to everything what you play on a table, and includes like different components that you see here on the picture, or cards or other things. Good. Just to give you a big idea how big the community worldwide is. In Romania, the community is much smaller, just like I told you. That's why I'm trying to do as much as I can so that I can grow it and bring this hobby to as many people as possible. Just to give you an idea, yearly, usually there are around plus minus 3,000 games which are released worldwide. So you have a big array of games where you can choose from, but yeah, not every game is like a very good game, but I'm always saying, because people are asking me, yeah, what games do you don't like, or what are your favorite games? And I'm always saying, and this fits with the socializing and education part, it depends the group, it depends why do you need it, and why do, or for what do you use this sport game. And that's why there are no bad or good games. They are just games which you can use in different situations. Just to give you another idea about board gaming and how big worldwide the community starts to be, there are huge events in Europe like Essen or Gen Con in the US, which have thousands and thousands of participations, where you can go see games, talk with publishers, and you see just a picture from one hall number 6 from Essen Spiel, which is in Germany. Again, all these big events are now online, just like we have this event today because of the pandemic. But usually this looks like this in just one hall, and there are tens of halls in these big conferences. And there are small conferences too. So even in Romania we have one, and I'm sure in other countries where you are from, there are even more. But just to give you an idea that this hobby and this board gaming, let's say, world community is not a small one. Releasing 3,000 games, having this type of huge events. And then just some general information about board games. I always like, so that you have an idea, to split them, let's say, into like three. Let's say it's like you can have the party games. Party games are games like code names, you see here in the picture, where you play in teams, where it's something fun, are easy to explain. Either you play in teams and try to get the words out, or so. They are things that you play in bigger groups and play to have fun. And then there are some other games like the other ones, like Pandemic and Catan and so on, which are strategic games. This is the difference. Let's say that they are the party games, and there are some, the other side are the strategic games, where you like are focused in maximizing what you're doing, getting the best resources, making the objectives and so on in the game. Of course, there you can split them in more detailed and more smaller groups, but in big lines, I would say there are those. We have the party games, and we have then strategic games, which of course are easy, basic, or easy, medium, and heavier strategic games. There are card games. There are different things. But to make it easy to explain, I like to split it into things that you play with friends, like say at the beer, or I don't know, it's doing something at home, and it's something easy you get on the table and play and have fun. And there are the ones which you have to think about more what you're doing, and are more the strategic ones. So this is just a big picture of how I see like a split. Of course, many people will say, yeah, but it's more nuanced and you can split it more in detail. Yes, of course you can, but this is, in my opinion, an easy way to, if I'm going to an event and people don't really know what board games are, or just know Monopoly and so on, then I can explain them easy. Okay, if you want to play something now, we have like the idea of party games or more strategic games, where it's more about the strategy. Okay, and then just to get a bit into the teams, these are just some examples. I just wanted to show that team-wise, you can have the board games, from farming board games to, I put here some space, science fiction, and some fantasy. But I don't think there is a team in the world which is not somehow covered by a board games. You have board games about all different animals, about food, about everything what you can imagine. There are about games about music, about everything. So that's why the point is, if you're searching for a specific theme, you will find a board game with that theme. This is what I wanted to underline. And now going a bit into the title of our presentation today. First is like the education part. Of course, there are board games which are labeled as educational games. This means if they are labeled as educational games, they're having some mechanics in the game where either it's some mathematic memory where you turn over two tiles and you have to make the sum of it and search for that number, or regarding writing, or so there are some games which are specifically labeled as educational games. But in the same time, in my opinion, each and every game you play is giving you something and is learning you something. And it's not just for children, it's even for grown-ups. If you play, like if we're going back into the presentation, like up in the right, this is Twilight Imperium, one of the heaviest games and well-known games in the market. Even you as an adult, because you cannot play this with children, you will learn a lot about strategy, about, let's say, tactical positioning and so on. And you will put your mind to work, let's say, which doctors say it's helping for Alzheimer and other things later in your life. But in each and every game, you will learn something new, and I can assure you that. So that's why I will not consider a board games that should be used in education should just the one be labeled as educational board games. I think every board game, even a party game regarding words, can be educational for children and for adults. You learn more words, you learn how to describe that word and so on, which is giving you a bigger vocabulary. So I can go in those details a lot, but I just wanted to give you a big picture about board games and education. And then I think it's important, I think everybody could use different board games in education. I'm having or had before the pandemic some trainings in my company regarding time management, and even there I found games that I can use for enforcing and helping me in teaching time management to adults. So I'm encouraging, if you're working in that domain, you can find board games that can help you in education. And if you're not and you're just playing board games, you should always know that each and every board game you play with your friends or with your children and so are helping them in a way, giving them extra information, helping them to think differently about different subjects, putting the mind to work, which actually expands the mind and the capacity of the mind, which is huge, because you do this not by doing something that maybe children's or you don't like, you do it by doing something you like, and that's playing. And another point, the second one, which I wanted to underline, and maybe it's obvious, it's about the socializing. I'm always saying that, yeah, you can meet and talk about different topics, but if you meet in the same group, in my opinion, at some point, and if you meet often, now again, excluding a bit this pandemic situation, but even here you can play games online and board games and not necessarily video games. Bringing people together and give them something else than just sitting, drinking something and talking about usually topics that a person wants to talk about. It's really interesting to get to know people by playing different games, seeing how they interact, how they think, and it's fun. Of course, it's fun too to go to the Discord. So I'm not saying that, yeah, don't do that or don't go to a party, stay here and play board games. But here and there, putting a board game on the table is helping, again, mind-wise, and so what we talked about education, but is giving you another interaction between your friends, between the society, between your team, if we're talking about work, because I said regarding team buildings at the beginning, is showing actually, because when you're playing, you're taking off the shell that you have, your protective shell, and where you just want to say things that you're prepared to say. By playing, you actually show yourself more, and then in the same vein, you will get to know all the other people much better, which you are interacting with during a board game. So this is my opinion, and this is the experience that I had in different board games. Even people that are usually shy were much more into the game and more verbally, which actually showed that they are, because of a motive, let's say, more shy. And then by playing this game, they got integrated into the team, and it was much better. These are just some examples, just to make you understand why I think, just like I explained regarding education, why I think board games are really helpful even in this socializing part, because you get to know the people better than just sitting and talking with them, because by playing you are more relaxed and not just watching out what you're saying if you're just sitting on a table and discussing about topics that you actually want or so on. Here in board games, it's everything is not prepared, everything can happen, let's say, and I always find it interesting. So this was just in short lines. My presentation, you saw there was not a lot of text, was mainly based on questions, interactions, and curiosities that you have. So it was just a short thing just to give you a big idea, just to sum it up. The community is huge if you're talking about worldwide, and board games, in my opinions, are of different types and different ways you can play them. There is no bad board game. There are just different situations where you can use them. And of course, there are different teams, different everything. You just need to find the like a board game that you can use then in education like you want, or in socializing, and don't stop just at one. I would say if you're interested in this and see that is working educationally, mind-workingly, I know that word doesn't exist, but and socializingly, then I would not stop just at one game. Yeah.
Okay. Andrei, I will ask you something, but first I conclude something that through board games you can discover yourself, you can discover the relations with others, and of course you can improve your thinking out of the box technique. But now, can we talk about the theme of our festival, science fiction and fantasy?
Yeah.
So can you tell us something about science fiction and fantasy games? Some examples, some words of them.
Okay, like you saw, I put already some pictures. In my opinion, if you take it as a big genre, if you take science fiction as one and fantasy as one, I think these are the most present themes in board games, because they are even if we're talking about science fiction or if we're talking about fantasy, there are different worlds created, and then there are more games related to that world. Like I showed in the, let's go back. Let's talk about the science fiction one that I put here in a picture. Yeah, it's a heavier one, but in my there are even easier games about science fiction, about fantasy. Like here in an example, here is the world of Twilight Imperium, which there are more games made in this world of, it's like a movie, let's say, but there is no movie. It's a world described in a rule book and created by this board game, and then this IP was used then for other smaller board games. Or on the right, when we're talking about Gloomhaven, this is the game that I presented here. Again, there is the world of Gloomhaven, and there are different games now created. Now they're thinking about bringing out a comic book. So it was in the other direction. It was the board game, and then they making now in this world a comic book. Who knows, maybe a movie, maybe I don't know, but it was the other direction now. Of course, there are games and movie related things in the other direction. So for example, Star Wars, Star Trek, if we're talking about science fiction, there are a lot of games related to that IPs. And of course, other IPs, science fiction wise, like superhero wise, again, a lot of games, and fantasy again. And another like, it's a role-playing board game, but I would put it here. It's like Dungeons and Dragons. This is a huge IP and has a huge world created around it. Since 20 or something years, people are playing this table role-playing game. So if you're searching for fantasy or science fiction, there are lots and lots of games with these themes. Themes like, I don't know, vinyls, music vinyls or so. Yeah, maybe you find one or two games about that. But if you're searching for science fiction and fantasy, you will have a lot of finds. And if you heard about Board Game Geek, this is let's say the almanac of board games. You will find all the board games there and ranked, and people are giving them marks and so on and so forth. You will find fantasy and science fiction games on the top. For example, Gloomhaven, the fantasy game, is on first place. Then you have about Star Wars and so like 2 or 3 games in the top 30 or so. So this is, I would say, if you're searching for the theme of this event, science fiction and fantasy, there are most of the games are having this type of theme, but different worlds.
There are also games made after movies.
Yes.
Yes. And
yes.
Can you give us some example?
Yeah,
yes, like Star Wars, Star Trek, yes, but
yes,
also
for example, The Shining. I don't know if it's like a horror one. I have to think now. I was not. Let's see if I have.
After Game of Thrones, I think is a game.
Game of Thrones, yes. Game of Thrones, for sure. They are even translated in Romanian language. There are 4 games regarding Game of Thrones. We have Lord of the Rings. We have all the Marvel cinematics, all the DC cinematics universe games. And there are some other niche ones, I think, which have like from other from other games. But these are the huge ones, the known ones. And I'm sure if I'm searching now, if I'm opening Board Game Geek, I will find much more. But these are the big ones that are popping up now.
Okay, Andrei, thank you very much for your presentation. It was an interesting one.
Well, thank you. You're welcome.
And we will wait you to meet you at the next edition of our festival. We hope that our enemy, COVID-19, will have defeated on this game that is not a board game.
Yes.
And we will see face in face, and it will be more provocative to do this.
Yes, I hope so too, and I hope that we can be then there face to face and play some games and it's interesting this online too, and we can talk and everything. And I underline here for the people that are listening, we have on Discord the whole 2 days, today and tomorrow. I'm there in the chat of board gaming. So if you want to play board games online on Board Game Arena, I will be there, open tables, and we can play. And there are even some things in the program, like in the evening, in Romanian time, there are some small tournaments that I will organize on Board Game Arena. So come there to see. So we're trying to, if we're not face-to-face in a room and playing games, we're trying to use what the technology is giving us to have at least a bit something regarding board games in these days. Okay.
Thank you, Andrei, once again. We will end this meeting now. You will see the recording on Film Festival YouTube channel. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.